It's a pleasure to be back here again. 2 years ago, I had a chance to join the group, and as we'll discuss, it's been a lot of progress since then, and that's all really due to what you have been doing and growing our family very, very substantially in that time period. Let me just recall that in 2011, when President Obama launched the Better Buildings Initiative, he said, and I quote, "Upgrading the energy efficiency of America's buildings is one of the fastest, easiest, and cheapest ways to save money, cut down on harmful pollution, and create good jobs right now." And of course, we all know the wisdom of that statement, and you have been demonstrating it through your efforts with this Better Buildings Challenge. Just a few weeks ago, Secretary Kerry signed the Paris Climate Accord in New York. As you know, a historic agreement with essentially every country in the world stepping forward with a degree of ambition in terms of addressing the climate challenge. The United States agreed to a 26 to 28% reduction economy-wide by 2025. And essentially, as I said, every country in the world has made, certainly all the major emitters have made fairly similar kinds of commitments. We know it'll take a lot of work to implement this. In our case, the Clean Power Plan is certainly one of the major elements, calling for a 32% reduction in CO2 emissions by 2030, from the power sector. The Department of Energy, with our efficiency standards and the like, has the expectation that the rules established in this administration will lead to about 3 gigatons of CO2 avoided to 2030, and north of $500 billion of consumer savings. So these are all important steps, but I do want to emphasize with regard to the Paris agreements, they were a major first step in addressing climate change. We've talked already a little bit about the major, but I also want to emphasize the first part, because we're going to need big second steps and third steps in the decades ahead. We will need increased ambition to meet increasingly stringent requirements, again, in the decades ahead. And energy efficiency is going to stay really at the forefront of our attempts, our successful attempts, I trust, to meet those goals. Indeed, I think I've said it before, I may have said it here 2 years ago, that I have seen no credible successful approach to the kinds of climate programs that we need without major demand-side progress, and obviously the building sector is an enormous part of that. Representing, of course, about 40% of our nation's energy use. So taking part in the Better Buildings Challenge, being here today, again, you certainly are a very important community that has stepped up to the challenge that it takes to advance energy productivity and, of course, making financial sense at the same time. By setting up not just ambitious targets, but reporting progress, openly sharing innovative energy-saving solutions, you are certainly helping to establish the trend for better energy management in our office buildings, manufacturing plants, public buildings, data centers, multifamily housing developments, and others as well. So this is a trend that is clearly strengthening, and again, we thank you for your efforts. When the President launched this challenge in 2011, there were 60 organizations involved, representing about 2 billion square feet of real estate. Today, We're talking 310 organizations, over 4 billion square feet of building space, and over 1,000 industrial facilities. So not only are we growing in number of partners, we've expanded the scope of the involvement to cover new sectors and issues. 2 years ago, DOE formed a partnership with HUD to advance energy efficiency in the multifamily housing sector, and today we have more than 100 partners from this sector, including public housing authorities, assisted housing providers, and market rate providers. Apartment dwellers spend more than $20 billion a year on energy bills, so this is no small matter, and I'm thrilled that HUD Secretary and good friend Julian Castro will soon be following me at this podium to talk about the progress we've made in working together on these challenges that we still face. We expanded recently into other sectors, such as data centers, which 3 years ago consumed about 7% of total commercial electricity consumption, and will rise even higher in the next few years. We've increased our efforts to address the water energy nexus by enlisting water and wastewater treatment agencies to set energy targets and adding existing partners to set water savings targets. The energy water nexus is something that we are across the board paying a lot more attention to, and certainly important in this context. So we launched 10 Better Building accelerators in just 3 years. These are shorter-term engagements lasting roughly 3 years, designed to bring stakeholders together for focused problem solving around a specific energy efficiency barrier, to touch on everything from data access to outdoor lighting. We are now moving forward with 3 new accelerators targeting very important issues in our local communities and neighborhoods. And these are, first, the Combined Heat and Power for Resiliency Accelerator for cities and utilities to develop plans to expand CHP as a reliable, high-efficiency, lower-emissions electricity and heating source for critical infrastructure. Second, partners in the Wastewater Infrastructure Accelerator will work together for more innovative approaches in data management, technologies, and financing for infrastructure improvement. And the goal is to improve the energy efficiency of participating facilities by at least 30% and integrate at least one resource recovery measure, such as using captured biogas to generate electricity in on-site CHP systems. The third is the Clean Energy for Low-Income Communities Accelerator to lower energy bills by expanded use of energy efficiency and distributed renewables. While experts estimate that spending anything more than 6% of income is unaffordable, low-income households, as we know, spend an average of 15 to 20% of their income on energy bills. So improving that can have very material impacts on their budgets and their lives. So growth is important, and so are new initiatives. But what really matters are the results, and the news is good here as well. For the 4th year in a row, partners are staying on track to meet their 10-year 20% energy savings targets, meaning, of course, across the program, partners are averaging better than about a 2% per year energy intensity improvement rate. We've seen about 160 trillion BTUs, a sixth of a quad, in cumulative energy savings, 1.3 billion in cost savings, and about 10 million tons of avoided CO2 emissions, which is, in the usual kinds of comparisons, it's like, 2 million cars off the road for a year. And of course, many of these projects have very attractive financial returns, often paying for themselves in 2 years or less. So this means that organizations can often at least use their own capital to fund these projects, but of course for bigger ticket items, external sources of financing are also important. So that's why we've organized a group of financial allies that each commit to millions of dollars in capital in the energy efficiency market, and also a sharing of the details of their financing solutions with their peers and the public. For 2015, close to 30 financial allies have funded $5.4 billion worth of energy efficiency projects, $2.4 billion more than last year. So it's an increase that matches the broader growth of third-party financing for clean energy projects. And these numbers tell a very positive story about the progress that we are all making through better buildings. Yesterday, I think you also heard about some outstanding individual successes as Dave Friedman, Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of DOE's Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, recognized those partners that have already met their energy, water, and financing goals. I just want to note, of course, that many of you know Dave Danielson, who has been heading that Office of EERE, will be, as his family expands, leaving us in a few weeks. He's done an outstanding job, and Dave Friedman will pick up that flag now, certainly for the rest of this administration. I want to add my congratulations and thank those 18 organizations that met their goals this year, as well as the 17 other partners that met their targets in previous years. Thank them for their leadership and for the openness and transparency that they have brought to the table. Certainly, because when sharing, the successful playbooks with the market, you really do let others see what you did to achieve these impressive results and save them time, effort, and money. And I think that's just an outstanding feature of this Better Buildings initiative. This will hopefully continue to change literally American business culture and the design of day-to-day operations and really contributing, of course, to our climate goals. Some might say that this is huge. A few examples that I certainly like: in the state of Rhode Island, and I grew up on the border of Rhode Island, established the principle of least cost procurement, effectively directing the state's primary utility to invest in all cost-effective energy efficiency measures. So within 4 years, investment in energy efficiency tripled in the state, and they are now third in the nation in per capita energy efficiency investment. Johnson Controls is making energy management tips, tools, and training freely available to its suppliers. Specifically, the company is conducting energy treasure hunts at supplier facilities, and these are structured events designed to identify low-cost energy saving opportunities that can be quickly implemented. On average, these hunts find savings equal to about 5 to 10% of plant-wide energy consumption. Pretty impressive result. The tower companies use advanced energy management systems and real-time monitoring to better understand the energy and water use of its office buildings. This enables staff to identify problems and correct them quickly. It means big energy and water savings, which, of course, translate into significant dollar savings as well. There are many more examples of these kinds of innovative approaches to energy efficiency, which DOE has cataloged and posted on its online Better Buildings Solution Center, and the number of these solutions just continues to grow. So in the spirit of openly sharing and exchanging solutions, we are exploring two of DOE's first reality TV-style series, the Better Buildings Challenge Swap. And as you know, the first season resulted in hundreds of thousands of views and great media attention. So we appreciate the willingness of these partners, Hilton Worldwide and Whole Foods Market, who swapped energy teams in buildings, and in doing so, pushed their energy efficiency actions even further. And we are excited about Season 2 and look forward to announcing that shortly. As much progress as we've made, there's certainly room to do more. The overall goal of Better Buildings, a 20% improvement in energy efficiency in 10 years, just a few years after the president set this goal. He must have been very confident that we were going to meet it, because he challenged us to double energy productivity by 2030. So doubling the economic input we get for each BTU consumed. And along with our partners at the Alliance to Save Energy and the Council on Competitiveness, DOE published last year the Accelerate Energy Productivity 2030 Roadmap, which details how we can meet this goal of doubling energy productivity and reap the economic benefits. A key conclusion is that there are demonstrated, proven opportunities in every part of our economy to improve energy productivity. We undertook detailed modeling to show that the goal is achievable and would bring economic benefits. Following the roadmap would increase energy productivity to $287 per million BTU, more than double the 2010 baseline of $134. So in percentage terms, this translates into a 3.6% higher GDP and 24% lower primary energy use by 2030 compared to projections by the EIA. These gains won't happen automatically. The federal government can support this in many ways, but fundamentally it takes the decision makers around the country to succeed over these next 15 years. We'll need to accelerate the efforts taking place through Better Buildings, but I'm confident that we can do it. So in conclusion, I think this Better Buildings initiative, A, is very important, and B, has been very impressive in the way it's gone forward. A great example of private industry, governments at all levels, and other stakeholders working together to make dramatic gains in our economic competitiveness and environmental stewardship. We will continue to promulgate this message, including internationally. Indeed, on June 1st and 2nd, we will be hosting in San Francisco the Clean Energy Ministerial, ministers from 23 countries and the EU gathering for the seventh time in a meeting that is a very important part of the road from Paris, and energy efficiency, not surprisingly, plays a very, very prominent role in the deployment strategies of the Clean Energy Ministerial. So, again, fantastic, I think, progress. Really thank all of you for what you're doing. And I guess I was told that I would be happy to take a few questions. I didn't know that, but I'm happy to. Thank you. How are we doing this morning? Okay.
Secretary, thank you so much for your time this morning. My name is Anna Siefken, and I work in Pittsburgh on the Pittsburgh 2030 District, which is a local voluntary effort that is working within the city with nonprofits and commercial buildings. So my question for you is, yesterday we heard inspiring words from Atlanta's Mayor Reed regarding the importance of cities to this collective work that we're doing for energy, water, and sustainability efforts. So could you speak for a few moments about what you think the role of cities should be?
Well, not surprising, my first comment is absolutely central. For one thing, I think a number that we hear a lot, but we have to keep in mind is, first of all, globally, the expectation that we will be 70% urban by mid-century, and certainly where I come from in Boston, there was the famous expression of asking Willie Sutton why he robbed banks, and the answer was because that's where the money is. Well, I think if you want to address energy, you better go where the people are in 2050 for sure. So cities are critical. Another important point, I think, there was actually a fascinating article in I think it was New York Times about a couple of weeks ago, saying how that kind of the ground truth is that while obviously it's very important, and we work with states, for example, and regions, but the reality is more than lines drawn on a map. It's networks of cities is probably in many ways where a lot of the action is. So the focus on cities is absolutely critical. Another issue there, and by the way, soon I will get to introduce again my colleague, a former mayor. Mayors know how to address problems on the ground in cities, pick up the trash, do a few other things. Julian will discuss that. But cities will be such a critical place for dealing with infrastructure. I mentioned briefly the energy and water. There's a case where we know in so many cities water rates can go up dramatically, sometimes creating distributional issues, but it's because we have got an enormous infrastructure challenge around our energy systems, our water systems, and we could go on in terms of other infrastructures. So a long way of saying that I certainly agree with your implied statement for sure that cities are at the forefront of the agenda, and this better buildings challenge is just one critical example of that. Okay, is a question there? Okay.
Good morning, Secretary Moniz. Christopher Russell with the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy. It's obvious to most folks here that there's great work coming out of DOE with respect to technology development and deployment, the institutes for innovation and so forth. My question is, where is the commensurate effort to develop the human resource complement, the everyday people who are going to be responsible for installing, maintaining, analyzing those technologies where it's going to hit the ground running? I really appreciate your comments on that.
No, that's a great point. Certainly in many ways, our portfolio is thought of as principally a technology portfolio, and that is absolutely critical. And by the way, I think many of you here know that on the first day of the COP21 meeting, President Obama and the leaders of 19 other countries committed to mission innovation, which entails doubling energy R&D over the next 5 years. So that's a very important agenda. But two others are critical. One I've already alluded to, which is things like setting efficiency standards. The third component is the one that you've raised on the human resources. So we have dramatically, frankly, increased in the last 2-3 years our focus on jobs. For those who would like a name, by the way, to follow up on, I would recommend at DOE Dave Foster, who we brought in as my senior advisor in this arena. Dave was the founding executive director of the Blue-Green Alliance and heads a new job strategy council. Actually, I'll have my quarterly meeting with them this afternoon. They work very, very closely with unions and with others in terms of helping shape the jobs in ways that support our environmental agenda. One thing that Dave's group did recently was, and it's on our website, an energy jobs report. The first question was, what's an energy job? It's not completely easy to define that. It certainly does not fit typical Department of Labor bins. And one thing that was found was roughly 1.8 million energy efficiency jobs in the United States. Many of those jobs are classified at DOL as construction jobs. But when you look at what's actually clearly directed to the energy efficiency space, the estimate that came out was about 1.8 million and growing rapidly. So we have a lot of programs to help support that. I'll give you one example of a specific program, and again, you can follow this up with Dave, get more fine-grained. But for example, we established a partnership with labor unions so that they could work with states in developing state implementation plans for the Clean Power Plan in ways that maximize job creation, and they in turn take on a major job training set of responsibilities. So those are the kinds of things that we are trying to do in terms of jobs. Another one I'll mention, which is not energy efficiency, but involves solar, is we have a strong program. In fact, we will soon announce a significant expansion, frankly, of a program where we work with our service members, military, before they leave the military to get training to go into things like solar installations. And this has been a fabulous program with typically multiple job offers as they are leaving the service. So we have a broad jobs strategy, and energy efficiency is certainly a major part of that. Do we have one more, or should we may just? Okay, last question. Brief question, brief answer.
Okay, good morning, Secretary Moniz. I'm with the K-12 sector, and you were talking about jobs. Can they reach a little further back into high school and middle school and help put some of those vocational training for our students so that when they turn out, they too have an understanding and they can change the next generation starting there? So I just would like you to put that in.
Well, there's no question about STEM education being critical, and frankly, just yesterday I met with some 6th and 8th graders who are in the national math competition. I have to say that the Department of Energy, we are supportive in every way we can, including science bowls and some activities that go to earlier ages, like this math competition that I mentioned. It is officially not part of our charge, and so we are somewhat limited in terms of our explicit programs, but we work as every way we can to support that. Absolutely critical, particularly, frankly, I would say, in the public education sector and in our cities, absolutely central. So with that, thank you. Let me now introduce again my good friend, Julian Castro, Secretary of HUD, under Julian's leadership, and it's been very refreshing to have him join us in the cabinet. It seems quite recently, but probably not to him. But he has really delivered on the promise to provide clean energy for the residents of affordable housing through a whole variety of programs. At DOE, we are extremely pleased with our partnership with HUD in the Better Buildings Challenge. And as I said, well, he's a real champion for both clean energy and affordable housing. And as a mayor, he knows what levers to pull to get things to really happen on the ground. So please, warm welcome to Julian Castro.